So welcome everybody. This is a special guest speaker, Professor Minjee Kim. She's an independent scholar, but she's a contributor to education program at San Francisco Asian Museum and other places as well. And last Friday, she gave a special talk about Korean dress history at University of British Columbia. When that video is available, I will also share it with you. She talked about whether the concept of fashion is applicable to Korean traditional clothes. The answer is yes, and she explained it really well. And today she's going to talk about, let's say, ancient dress of East Asia that are commonly found in, let's say, Manchu area, like a northern China and Korean Peninsula. We didn't start Korean dress yet, but today's material that you see in Dr. Kim's presentation will be commonly found in my lecture. So you will see, sort of a recapitulation of same images next week in my lecture. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Minjee Kim. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Professor Pyun, for this opportunity to meet with your students. Today's today's class temporally covers from 57 BCE through 935 CE for over 1,000 years, known as the Three Kingdoms period and the Northern and Southern States period in Korean history. I want you to check the location of the Three Kingdoms, Goguryeo in the north and Baekje in the southwest, and Silla in the southeast part of Korean Peninsula. So close your eyes and think about where Goguryeo is located. Goguryeo was in the north, and Silla southeast, and Baekje was southwest. And Silla get to unify the Three Kingdoms in the mid 7th century, and then Silla achieved the unification. However, territory-wise, it was limited within just the southern part of Korean Peninsula. So 30 years later, Balhae was established in 698, and they formed the two states, formed the Northern and Southern States period. And during this time in China, the dynasties were Han Dynasty and Wei Jin Northern and Southern States Dynasty, and Sui Dynasty and Tang Dynasty. So don't be confused with Chinese Northern and Southern States period and Korean history's Northern and Southern States period. Those are different. So with this historical background, I'm gonna talk about the dress history. So historians examine possible primary sources in researching dress history. What can be the primary sources? First, written documents like a historical text, and second is the pictorial source like a pictorial representation like mural tombs, and the third category can be dress artifacts. Unfortunately, no surviving clothing items remain for today's target period because the earliest clothing artifact in Korean history dates back to 1302, which is in Goryeo Dynasty. So we will not see the real clothing artifacts for today's lecture. However, we will see some pictorial representations and archaeological findings, like a buckle, in this picture. And what can be analyzed out of primary sources? I want you to pay attention to the style, silhouette, whether it is body hugging silhouette or body covering silhouette, and the relation between body and garment, how human body was represented, and the way of dress up, like whether the right panel over the left or left panel over the right. Those are the way of dressing up. and the technology reflected on the cut, construction, and embellishment. And what can we see through dress? The wearer's identity, social class, or regional specificity, so regional style or gender, whether that is gender differentiating look or androgynous look, and whether they are Han Chinese people or Korean people or Japanese people, those ethnicities. So those can be examined through primary sources, but I don't limit these factors. You can see more than that through the examination of dress. And the earliest pictorial resource showing Korean as dressed figures are mural tombs of Goguryeo Kingdom. So as I talked about where Goguryeo located before, so Goguryeo was located in the north part of Korean Peninsula and Manchuria, and these two areas are known for the locations for Goguryeo mural tombs. So almost 27 mural tombs are showing these kind of figures, dressed figures. And the style of the upper garment shows both men and women wore similar style of upper garments, and their edges, the side hems are bound. Side hems and bottom hem are bound with different fabric or patterned fabric. And I want you to keep in mind some key terms that referred the upper garment and the pants and skirt. So the upper garment was called jogori, and pants are called baji, and the skirts are called, a skirt is called chima, and the headdress is usually called jeolpung, like this. And in case the feather is decorated in each side, on each side, it was called 조우관. So I want you to keep in mind those terms. And horse riding and hunting was important means of living at that time. And the design of clothing was, the clothing was designed to fit their practicality of their activities. So the styles are snugly fitting arms, showing snugly fitting arms and legs. And this style accommodated the practicality of their activities. And if you see, those three images are also from Goguryeo mural tombs. And if you see, at this time, people already made their textile with these textile patterns, and another geometric patterns are also found. And this person's sleeves are longer than usual people. So why their sleeves are longer? Why this person's sleeves is depicted longer? So think about it. I will explain it later. And this kind of flirtatious hairstyle. Why this person is making her hair like this? And what does the edge bindings fabric and is showing red, or this one is having black? So these kind of things all are associated with their with meanings to communicate with their society members. And if you consider this style, these are two-piece type of style. And this type of Goguryeo clothing is not like Egyptian loincloth, that a piece of cloth wrapped around the hip, and not like the Indian sari or Roman toga or Greek himation. So these fabric, these clothing stylists also employ big piece of fabric that wrapped around the body. So these are different from Goguryeo style, Goguryeo dress style, and this one shows pullover style tunic. So these are also different from Goguryeo style. Goguryeo style is more like the clothing of nomad people across Eurasia with front closure, and this is a two-piece separate ensemble with edge bindings. So this is very similar to Goguryeo people's clothing style. The Scythians resided from 9th century to 1st century BCE across Eurasia, and ancient Han Chinese people called this kind of style of clothing as hufu, meaning clothing of barbarians. And actually, because of this practicality, in 307 BCE, China's King Wuling of Zhao Dynasty adopted this style for their military people's clothing for the battle with nomadic tribes. So at that early time, already the clothing style was intermingled in East Asia and across Asia. And this lady is from Goguryeo mural painting. In her image, her skirt, very finely pleated skirt, draws my attention in how people at that time created this sophisticated, finely pleating technique, like what we have enjoyed in modern fashion history with Mariano Fortuny's invention and its impact on Issey Miyake's work. And also, long tradition of fine pleating skill in the skirt can be found in the skirt of ethnic minorities living in China and Thailand. So surveys of surviving pleating techniques can be helpful to construe the ancient technique that existed in Goguryeo. As fine pleats, this kind of fine pleats, these fine pleats create texture and architectural form. So the idea of fine pleating became the reoccurring themes in fashion history for thousands of years. Also, when you see the mural painting, more important figure was depicted larger and big figures clothing. So we can tell this is the high status person and this is kind of a low status person, like a helper. So if we compare their clothing, more fabric was used for aristocrats than commoners. So examine the width of sleeves and width of pant leg and the length of jacket or coat. Those were kind of perimeters that denoted their status. So this person is a maid and this person is a tomb owner. So the clothing style, if you see the clothing style, you can tell more fabric was used for higher status person. And also as a tribal polities in Korea, so as population grow, the population formed tribal society and the tribal societies formed a confederacy and those confederacy developed into a state. So and at the time they developed into a state, the central government issued state's dress code. So this is the dress code found in Korean history as the earliest record. That is 260 CE. And this is the record of Baekje, one of the three kingdoms. And so in Baekje, they regulated the color of headdress and ornament of headdress and color of robe and color of belt. Those were regulated according to their ranks. So in Baekje, there were 17 ranks 1 through 16, they had a rank title, and there were people, they didn't have a rank title. So these determined people's rank, and state controlled people's appearance. At this time, individuals did not have a choice of, not many choice of their dress system, but a lot of part was controlled by state government. In this dress code, what occupies the supreme status of the color? Purple, right? Purple is the most highest ranks color. And in this table, you can see the Shilla's court uniform system. In Shilla kingdom, they regulated court uniform with the color and tablet. Usually civil officials hold a notepad, like that is made with whether ivory or wood, and they regulated the material, and the headdress was also regulated. So this was promulgated about 520 CE, and it lasted until they reformed their court uniform system. And have you heard about born in the purple or born to the purple? The English phrase, this, was an indication of a category of members of royal families born during the reign of their parent. And this phrase now later loosely expanded to include all children born of prominent or high-ranking parents. And so in this, so at this point, we can tell purple was, regardless of east or west, purple denoted supreme status. And this mural painting shows the earring decoration in their body. And actually, from tomb excavation, the Goguryeo tomb shows this kind of unearthed earrings. So we can tell these archaeological findings support this pictorial representation. And this is a warrior depicted in Goguryeo mural tomb, and this person's shoes has a spiky bottom, and this actually unearthed shoes verifies this person's shoes, and actually this is to secure the feet for horse riding. Juro Olowu is a Nigerian-born British fashion designer. He is best known for his innovative combinations of patterns and textiles that draw inspiration from his much international background. And here, the ikat fabric was used for the hem binding, and with that connects to the ancient nomadic clothing design. So this ancient clothing design can still inform contemporary fashion. And this shows, this image is depicted from Goguryeo mural tomb, and Korean fashion designer Lee Shin-woo, in her 1994 Paris collection, she transferred this image to the fabric print. In the East Asia, the way of wearing upper garments was linked with manifestation of ethnic identity and civilized status. So if you see this image, the lady is wearing her upper garment left over right, so left panel over right. But if you see this image, this man is wearing right over left. So during the 4th to 6th century Goguryeo period, the way of wearing upper garment transitioned from right over left style to left over right style. And in modern practice, if you see hanbok upper garments, men's jogori, women's jogori, and men's coat are all worn left over right. And in kimono, also left over right. And chipao and changpao is worn also left over right. However, if you see the Western clothing, this demarcate the dress style, the way of dressing up in Western clothing is different depending on the gender. So women wear right over left, men wear left over right. So this is kind of different in Western jackets. This is very important in East Asian dress practice because in even 5th to 6th century BCE, Confucius stated, we can find the record traced back to Confucius era. Confucius said, had Guanzhong not defeated the barbarians, I would have been one of them, leaving my long hair down and with my jacket crossed to the left. So Confucius said, these two kind of appearance are so these styles are considered as barbaric. So what Confucius described as barbarians' appearance is leaving long hair down without having top knot and wearing jacket over right over left. So because at this time, at Confucius era, this was considered as barbaric. So Korean and Japanese, they just wanted to hold the global standard. So they adopted the leftover right wearing practice. And in ancient East Asia, Chinese people had kind of sinocentrism that considers Han Chinese people located in the center of the universe. So they are in the center of world, and the rest of people that surrounded their territory were all considered as barbarians. So East was considered Korea and Japan located east of China, so they were considered as Eastern barbarian, and the color for East was assigned as blue, and red for South, and black for the North, and white for the West. So those are the colors for the 4 directions, and Chinese were assigned as yellow color. So this kind of notion dominated in the clothing culture in East Asia. And this painting, did anybody see this painting before? This painting is very important painting in terms of, at this time, people denoted their identity through dress. So this painting shows 26 envoys, emissaries from 24 states who paid tribute to the emperor of China, who is Emperor Wu of Liang dynasty during 539 to 540 CE. So these 3 people are the hosting party in China, and the rest are recorded with their state's name and their whole appearance with dress. So here, 3 kingdoms, emissaries' appearance were depicted. So this person is from Baekje, and this person is from Goguryeo, and this person is from Silla. So 3 emissaries were depicted, and this one is from Japan at that time. So you can tell their dress style is different, and within the 3 kingdoms were similar. And then this person is from West Asia. and a lot of people are wearing this coat with round neckband. And this person is closing his robe, but this person is opening his robe. So if this is closed, it shows round neckband, but this one is wearing it, the front closure open, showing the lapel. And this one as well, showing the lapel, showing lapel, showing lapel, but those robes are all has round neckband. Here, this person as well. So a lot of them are wearing this robe. Those are usually from west side of China. So here you can tell three kingdoms envoys are wearing similar style, but headdress or hairstyle, those are kind of showing regional specificity as well. But the pants, they have kind of edge binding different with different fabric. Those pants looks similar, shoes looks similar, and the upper garments has significantly different from the round neckband one. This one has straight side hems. They wrapped left over right. So, as I showed this table before, this shows 신라's court uniform system, and in the record, it is recorded as indigenous. So at this time, about 520 CE, 신라 government instituted this dress code and for court uniform, but this was recorded as indigenous style. However, in the course of unifying three kingdoms, 신라 reformed their court uniform system significantly by adopting Tang Dynasty's court uniform. So when 신라 unified the three kingdoms, 신라 formed military alliance with Tang Dynasty. At that time, 신라 asked Tang Taizong, here this record shows Tang Taizong to conform their court uniform system of Tang, and then Tang Taizong approved and then bestowed sets of their officials' uniforms along with the investitures on Chunchu and subordinates, and Chunchu returned to 신라, presumably with the uniforms, and starting from 649 CE, the Tang court uniform system began to be instituted in the 신라 dynasty. So at that time, 신la formed military alliance with Tang, and then they reformed their court uniform system in 649. And then 11 years later, 신la and Tang both defeated Baekje in 660. And in 664, after 4 years later, after 신la and Tang defeated Baekje, the women, at this time, the country, 신la annexed Baekje. So 신la and Baekje women dress Tang-style attire. So they reform women's dress code as well. And then another 4 years later, 신la and Tang defeated 고구려 in 668. So in the middle of unification war, 신la government reformed their dress code for men and women. And then 8 years later, 신la unified the three kingdoms, although the territory was limited within the south part, and then 신la achieved unification, and then 신la finally expelled Tang's force out of peninsula in 676. And then, as I said, the northern territory of 고구려 was lost, was not achieved by 신la's unification. So 30 years later, 발해 was established in the old territory of 고구려, and then it lasted until early 10th century. Both countries lasted until late 10th century. So that formed northern and southern states period. And if you see after unification, this is unified Shila's civil official holding a scepter. So this is a scepter, is a tablet he hold, and very similar style of clothing and appearance is found from the Tang Dynasty painting. So even the mustache is those mustache shows similarity, and the robe is, as I explained, it is a robe with round neckband. This was a huge fashion in Tang Dynasty at this time, and this style transmitted to unified Silla and Balhae as well. This is Balhae's Chamberlain depicted in Balhae's mural painting, and this similar style is also found from the Tang Dynasty's painting as well. So their belt and their robe and their headdress, those are all similar, and this formed international style during the Tang cosmopolitan style during Korea's northern and southern states period. And this, I want you to remember the clothing name. Dalyong, clothing name is Dalyong, and the headdress is called Bokju. And this person is having suspending a pouch at his belt, and this pouch, inside of this pouch there is a fish shape object. This is ID, fish shape ID. So as we take our ID card all the time, at this time this was their ID. So in this fish shape object, they inscribe their name and their official title, and then one is stored in the government building and one is carried with the individual all the time. So when he entered the building, government office building, then he had to present his ID to match with the one in the building. So so as I said, these are the actually West Asian style clothing, but it was adopted that went to China, and then it formed as a court official uniform, and that transmitted to Korea and Japan and the periphery countries. And this is actually from Egyptian tunic, and you can tell this has a round neckband, and it is closed with this knot button. And this one is from Metropolitan Museum of Art collection, and this was excavated from Iranian area, so west of China. So you can actually research further from Metropolitan Museum of Art collection. And this is kaftan dating to 7th to 9th century, which corresponds to the period we are talking about, the northern and southern states period in Korean history. And this shows Balhae's Dalyong, the round neck robe, and this was worn by men, but also this Dalyong was worn for women as well. So Dalyong was an androgynous look. And this shows the court uniform system of Balhae. It shows color and tablet, the material of tablet, and the ID pouch. ID pouch could be embellished with gold or silver, depending on their rank. So higher rank embellished their ID pouch with gold, a little bit lower rank embellished with silver. And how they managed very similar style of court uniform. So if you see this record, it explains how they managed the court uniform system that similarly. The Balhae court sent an envoy, Jimong. Jimong is the name of the envoy, to the Tang court, Chinese court. In 730, Jimong paid tribute with their indigenous products and 30 horses. In exchange, Tang court bestowed on Jimong an official title, and 20 bolts of silk, a red court robe, and silver belt. So when periphery countries' emissaries pay tribute to the Tang court, they usually bring their local products and they present a gift, and then Tang court also bestowed their court uniform and always dress-related materials. So that's how the fashion transmitted to other countries. And also, this was transmitted to Japan. So this one is stored in the Japanese repository, temple repository called Shoso-in. So you can tell at this time how real garments of this court uniform looks like. And then Japanese court uniform is developed into their own style, extraordinarily stiff. And in China and Korea, their court uniform looks so similar. As I said, the tributary activities disseminated the court uniform fashion to Korea as well. And the king's court uniform and king's official clothing looks so similar in Ming, first emperor of Ming Dynasty and first king of Joseon Dynasty, managed pretty same. And the women's dress code in Korea changed to Tang style, as I said. So this one shows unified Shilla, and this one shows 발해. So those women's wore this kind of style, which is different from what we saw in Goguryeo clothing. Goguryeo clothing was the upper garment was long enough to cover the hip, right? But this upper garment is worn inside the skirt, and they tied their skirt very high waist location. And this is Tang Dynasty style. So the Tang women wore their skirt very high waist line, and this shows early Tang style. This shows later Tang style. The difference is while the dress style remained the same, their ideal body shape changed. So slender body was preferred in the early Tang period, but later they prefer the plump and more fuller style body was depicted in the artifacts. And at this time, the scarf was very popular. So in unified Shilla, they called this scarf pyo, and in China, they called this rinjin, and in Japan, it was called hire. So the three countries enjoy the scarf fashion, long scarf fashion. And these artifacts were excavated from Xinjiang in China. And as they, this shows sumptuary law in menswear, and at this time also women's wear also were regulated by government. So the Shilla government at that time so extravagant and luxurious clothing culture were enjoyed in Shilla kingdom. And at that time, Shilla government, the luxurious dress practice caused a lot of problems. So Shilla government banned these kind of items according to their rank. They banned, they made a sumptuary law regulating their dress practice. So this one shows the sumptuary law promulgated in 834. So in reading this kind of sumptuary law, I want you to read it between the lines. People actually, in reality, people circumvented the sumptuary laws and dress above their station. That's why the sumptuary law promulgated. So that concludes my talk today. And if I recapitulate, the cross-examination of written source, pictorial source, and archaeological sources needs to be, all the primary sources needs to be studied together, and analysis on technological advancement, textile pattern, dye technique, pleating, cut, construction, silhouette, proportion, and ideal body image and makeup also should be analyzed from the primary sources. And dress, we have to look at dress as a marker of one's identity, social status, gender, and ethnicity. And in the Three Kingdoms period, before the unification, the Three Kingdoms managed their clothing culture very similarly. And that manifests distinctive dress culture from other countries, but within their countries, they manifested Korean collective identity. And Silla maintained their dress code as a political governance and diplomacy during the process of unification. So when they unify their countries, the Three Kingdoms, they used dress code as a political means and diplomacy. So I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this, and I wanna hear your opinion on this after this talk. And tributary activities contributed to diffusion of culture and dissemination of fashion. And at this time of northern and southern states period and Japan, Tang, those countries actually show cosmopolitan dress style at that time. So this wraps up my talk, and I look forward to question.
Okay, thank you so much. So can you stop sharing slide,
Okay.
Dr. Kim?
Sure.
Then my students, can you turn on your cameras if you can? It's sort of, face to face. I don't see you very often. And Dr. MinjeeKim is joining us from San Francisco, Pleasanton, right? That's where you live. So yes. It is early in the morning.
That's okay. That's okay.
And then, so I'm going to wait a little bit. If you have enough Wi-Fi, can you turn on the camera a little bit? I want to take a picture together. Just like our, the dress up day. Yeah. Turn on the camera and then look pretty. So, and then also think about what you want to ask Dr. MinjeeKim. Metziel, Cynthia, Amanda, I saw you, I see you in the last line. Shora, Shamara, Renee, Marcia, can you turn on your camera? I want to get a large screenshot of all of us. You also see us, right? Everybody, right? Yeah. Okay, so, okay, smile everybody. Oh, okay, more coming up. Amanda, do you have a camera? And Renee?
I do not.
Oh, okay. Okay, then smile. 1, 2, 3. This is so cute. Yeah, I'm going to send you the photo on the announcement. But anyhow, let's go into a little bit of a discussion. We didn't quite start Chinese yet, but in the beginning of the introduction, we heard about these directional colors, right? Like a color purple. And then, one should dress up for their social status, right? That's what the Confucius said in the Analects, right? We talked a little bit about those. So do you have any question? You can raise hand. Well, let's start with Nancy. We have an embroidery designer, Dr. Kim.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Hi.
Hi,
And
Minjee.
I'm hoping to study some embroidery design in Japan. Okay, I work in factories in China doing hand beading work and everything. So
Oh.
my question is about in terms of the dress where excuse me, the waistline is moved up or down. What is there like something significant about it? Like, is it something cultural that represents something? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just something that I was thinking about when you showed those pictures. Is there a reason why the clothes were cut a certain way? Like, is there something behind it that caused, like, I know that fashion changes because of reasons. So I realize that it's not like fashion that's changing all the time, but was there a reason behind the cut of the garments?
That's very good question. That makes me think about that point. But unfortunately, I haven't found any record on why the waistline moved up. But because, you know, historians always can tell based on the evidence. If there's no record, if there's no object that proves any hypothesis, we cannot talk about it. So I will keep looking for that evidence, but so far I haven't found any evidence on it. Yeah, thank you for the question. I'll look for it. And yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, and it's very significant change. They wore skirt at the waistline, but sometimes they wear it at above the bust line. And that occurs in Joseon Dynasty. Joseon Dynasty is way later than what I talked today. Joseon existed from 14th century through early 20th century. So at that time, early Joseon period, they wore skirt at the waistline, the real waistline. However, in the later period, like in nowadays hanbok, is worn above the bust line. So it's very high location. So that is kind of occurred in the early period, like right now, what I talked today. So that is very interesting in Asian fashion history. Thank you.
Any other person who have any question?
If there's no question, then I'm gonna suggest you to think about why Silla government reformed dress code in the middle of unification war. They were so it's kind of very critical situation. It took like decades to complete the Three Kingdoms unification. However, they totally transformed their dress code, adopting Tang Dynasty's style. And why did they do that in the middle of war? Is there anybody who has opinion on that?
You can just speak up, or let's see.
Professor.
Yes, Madeline.
Both of you. Would it be the only thing I can think of when you brought up that question is, I mean, they were allies with the Tang Dynasty, and they, I mean, so the only thing I can think of is like just to show loyalty. Because like if you're in an alliance with another state, I don't know, that's the only thing I can think of.
Yes, thank you for your thought. And any other thought?
Yeah, I was thinking the same lines with Madeline, because then the only thing I can think of was that you mentioned that Silla and the Tang worked together to unify the countries. So the only thing I can think of, it would be like a political alliance, as in like the Silla adopting the Tang uniform. That's the only thing I can think of as well.
Yeah, and we nowadays we talk about get out of Eurocentrism in dress history and decolonize the dress practice, but that is kind of when Western culture just infiltrated in other country, then that dress code change was made by other forces rather than their internal force. So, but at this time, Shilla adopted Tang style very actively, very voluntarily. The historical record shows Shilla's leader went to the Tang court and they asked to conform their dress code to that of Tang dynasty. And then they got the permission and then they brought the uniform to Shilla and they just processed very voluntary way. So that is very different from when European dress came into the Asian country. I don't know about how Japan, I don't know exactly about how Japan adopted Western dress code at the time of their opening their country, but usually it just comes by outside the external force. So I want you to think about it, and that was at the time. It was kind of Shilla needed to prepare the unified culture after unification. They had to prepare the culture after the unification. Then they need something new. They cannot rule the country as a unified country. Like, think about nowadays South Korea and North Korea. If South Korea and North Korea unified together and they needed kind of new system of culture, and Shilla probably wanted that new culture with something new. Then, because at that time, the individuals had no choice to control their appearance. State dress code dominated the country. So the dress code was very important realm of political decision. So rulers should make decision on their dress code. And they needed something new to kind of harmonize the unified kingdom. So that's my thought, but it's not, there's no right or
Professor.
yeah, correct
Because
answer.
I guess like if you, I mean, yeah, and that's the, if you, because yeah, you don't want to go back. You want to move forward to the future. You don't want to go back. So
Yes,
kind of just as a like a, oh, this is, yeah, so we're moving on. Let's change everything up. Moving on.
Yes. That's the idea. That's what I think of, but I want you to keep thinking of that.
Nancy had a comment?
Yeah, I have a question. So does the trade on Silk Road have anything to do with how they adapted other new ways of dressing?
Yes, that's very good point. That also explains. Yeah, at that time, Tang cosmopolitan style dominated the whole Asia. So that's why they wanted to update their dress code in the global standard. So that explains.
So anybody else? Any question or comments? What about Jingu? Do you have any question? No, not at the moment. Emma, do you have any question? No, not necessarily. Okay, then maybe Dr. Kim can have a breakfast. It's morning time in California. So we are going to share the recording with all of you. And thank you so much for your valuable time. And Dr. Minjee Kim had a PhD in costume history. So you can see like how much knowledge or background you need, right? Like obviously literary sources in classical Chinese, and you should also be analyzed like a visual research. That's what we are doing in our class usually for our historical character project. And then you have archaeological projects, right? So it is a collaboration of different disciplines, but Dr. MinjeeKim, so what is your favorite historical drama from this period, the Three Kingdoms period? We have a lot of televised series, right? And then which is the most sort of in your mind, authentic or worth watching?
Nothing is authentic. We have to admit the historical drama is contemporary creation, not faithful to the historical fact. You don't have to be faithful to the original resource. It's just drama is it's contemporary creation, so you can be more creative. You can employ the historical resource, but you can have more creative aspect. So yeah, but yeah, most of historical dramas are not authentic. When I see those dramas, what are these designs? Where did they come from? But yeah, I like Son Dong-gyeowang because I like Go Hyun-jung, the actress.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I have some episodes from that Queen Sundong because it's a lavish production. It's like a 50 episodes or something. So we will see that Three Kingdoms royal family's costume in that televised dramas. But thank you so much, Dr. MinjeeKim, for your erudite presentation. It's a great example for you when you have your presentation. All the sources are revealed, right? There are written sources versus images, or where this image came from, from the museums. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
It was
you.
great pleasure to meet all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, have a great day, everybody. Bye bye. Thank you.
You too.
Uh,
Thank you.
Thank you.